Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. Hope you guys are having a chill day today. In this video, I'm going to be covering a new GameFi project that recently launched its farming pools on Harmony. A lot of the DeFi Kingdom zealots are ignoring the project, saying that it's just a copy and paste. I mean, there's definitely some overlap, but there's still some significant nuances that I'm going to highlight in this video. Now, if you wanted to learn about these projects early on, I strongly recommend that you guys go ahead and join my Discord channel. The link is in the description below, especially if you're new to crypto, because it's a great place to learn, network, and meet like-minded individuals. And if you look at some of the most successful people in crypto, a large part of their success is due to forming alpha groups. Additionally, I also have a newsletter. About 95% of the content is for free. You'll get industry highlights, interest rate updates. I cover NFT projects, GameFi projects, DeFi projects. So if you're interested in signing up for that newsletter, just click the link in the description below and enter your email address. Now, with the intro out of the way, let's go ahead and dive into this video. All right, this is DeFira. The team behind the project delivered this money market protocol on Harmony, and to date it's been a success as far as money market protocols go. You can see that they have a massive TVL of $356 million, and recently they decided to make the pivot to DeFira. So essentially they're doing the same thing DeFi Kingdom did, which is gamifying a DeFi experience. Or you could think of it as building a game on top of a DeFi Lego piece. Now, even though they started out with the money market protocol, they launched the game with the DEX first. And they did that to seed the ecosystem with their governance token or their in-game token called FIRA. So essentially what they've done is created a dual token system. The original token they launched the money market protocol Tranquil Finance with is TRANQ, TRANQ. In fact, before they launched DeFira, the only way you could accumulate FIRA prior to the game was locking your TRANQ tokens here for a minimum of 6 months. And while you have your TRANQ staked here, you're not only earning FIRA, but you're also earning fees that are accumulated by the money market protocol. And if you guys end up depositing your assets here, just note that there's a 50% penalty if you decide to withdraw early. And they have stated in the past that they're going to be offering airdrops of, for example, Gen 0 heroes to users who are staking TRANQ tokens. So if you're open to making a long-term bet on the platform, it would be a pretty good idea to throw a little bit of TRANQ here and lock it up for 6 months. Because while you wait, you're accumulating fees, there's the potential for TRANQ to appreciate in price. And if you think the team can deliver long term, these airdrops could be potentially very lucrative. And recently they expanded over to Cronos. They also launched a money market protocol there called Mimas Finance. And the TVL here isn't very large. It's only 17 million compared to the 350 million that you saw on Tranquil Finance. And in a recent video, I forecasted that they're going to use the funds that they're getting from the Cronos Ecosystem Fund, which is essentially a grant to develop and build GameFi or DeFi protocols on the chain. I suggested that the main impetus for them expanding over was to get funds so they can build a game and eventually expand that game from Harmony over here to Cronos. And if you look at the documentation, that's exactly what they're planning to do. And to keep it consistent with the lore, they're going to call it Cronia, which is another continent in this GameFi world that they're building. And my guess is that just like DeFi Kingdom is coming out with a new token for every expansion, I'm guessing when the game expands over here to Cronos, the in-game token is going to be Mimas. And so if you were looking to get exposure for free, what you could do is supply one of these assets to the pool and take the yield that you earn and deposit it here. Lock it up for 6 months like you would with TRANQ, earn fees. If you did that, you might be missing out on opportunity costs because you could definitely get higher yield for Bitcoin, stables, and Ethereum. But since you're accumulating Mimas tokens for free, you're basically getting to make a risk-free bet that this team is going to deliver on the game. Now, coming back to the game, this is their map. Obviously, it's very similar to DeFi Kingdoms. In fact, some of the team is composed of ex-DeFi Kingdom staff members. And personally, that doesn't bother me much because now that you have DeFira on the scene, it's going to put more pressure on DeFi Kingdoms to deliver and execute. As you can see, they put a lot of work into this map here, and even the music is pretty dope in my opinion. Now, obviously this game is in very early stages of development, so you really can't do much. You can come here to the market, you can provide liquidity to the supplier, you can exchange tokens, you can come here to the temple and you can stake your locked FIRA, and you can go ahead and stake your unlocked FIRA. Now there's only 3 ways to get unstaked FIRA. Either you have to buy it on the open market, you have to farm it, or you get it on Tranquil Finance for staking Tranq tokens. Now we'll revisit this page in a later segment of the video where I'll talk about the various strategies you can use depending on your risk profile. Now you can provide liquidity using the map here by going to the market and then coming here to farm, or you could come here to this user interface and provide liquidity here. Now we discussed this earlier about having a DeFi layer and then having a game layer, but they also mentioned an intellectual property layer. And essentially what they're referring to is creating a fan base by developing recognizable characters, music settings, and stories, which is great for luring in and retaining a loyal community, but also it allows them to create NFTs and monetize them. So they could, for example, create new classes, come out with more Gen 0 heroes, and depending on the size of the fan base and the value that they create for the community, they're going to be able to make money perpetually. Now, unlike a lot of the DeFi protocols out there, especially the early core primitives, this GameFi layer actually creates demand for the token. I mean, take a look at PancakeSwap. I mean, it did pretty well when we had that retail mania, but ever since, the token price has only been going down. And so this is what happens to most DeFi protocols, because they're able to bootstrap a pretty large user base early on because the tokens that they're emitting for liquidity provision or other desired behaviors are so robust that they get a massive influx of users. If you don't have the right utility features, you don't create demand for the token, then in most cases, these DeFi tokens are gonna just trend towards zero. But with this GameFi layer, users are incentivized to buy heroes, they're incentivized to buy other in-game items, whether it's for flex, or it's to give them an edge in the game. And with the game, you can add so many different verticals. For example, you can have land, you can have development of that land, you can do player versus player battles. So essentially what you're doing is creating an in-game economy. So with that in mind, DeFira is going to focus on 2 core game modes, Expedition and Conquest. They're also going to deploy a progression system that requires users to collect FIRA and Tranq tokens so they can improve their NFTs. Like I mentioned before, the game allows them to create multiple verticals that results in additional utility and demand for the tokens. And on a side note, I think most of these games are inevitably going to go ahead and deploy on their own chains. I've talked about subnets in a past video. I highly recommend that you guys check it out, because with their own chains, they can create rules for their validator set. For example, they can say things like, on our chain, you have to stake a certain amount of FIRA to run a node. And on top of that, they can use their own token as the network fee, which makes it somewhat more deflationary. And by doing that, you create more demand for the token, you add some deflationary pressure, and so as the game scales, as a user base grows, the transaction volume and the activity on the chain will be more aligned with the price of the respective tokens. Now, coming back to DeFira, in their conquest mode, it looks like we're going to have some PvP going on here. Expanding outside the capital city, an entire continent will be battleground for fame and treasure in the highest level grand strategy game mode. Users build, develop settlements, and raise armies to fight for territory and resources. On a persistent world map, heroes can be assigned as governors of prosperous city or a general of a conquering army. Now, as awesome as this sounds, I think this is going to take a lot of time and money. But the cool thing about GameFi is that when it comes to these fair launches, you're actually getting to see the game being built out in real time, and you're also getting to play it piece by piece in real time. And obviously the people that are engaged and involved early on have the most to gain if the game delivers long term. They also have this jobs and quest mode. This is somewhat similar to what you see in DeFi Kingdoms. It's basically sending out your heroes on quest, and by doing so, you'll get items and potentially find ways to increase your farming yields or unlock FIRA faster. And lastly, you have Expedition mode, where compared to Quest mode, the Expedition mode is a more intimate experience in which players take a party of their heroes on an adventure to explore and seek treasure and glory. Now, the central hub for DeFira is going to be the capital city, and each chain that they expand to will have their own capital city. And just like DeFi Kingdoms, I would imagine at some point they're going to allow users to purchase land. And given that they've mirrored a lot of their game design off of DeFi Kingdom, I wouldn't be surprised if we see some more of that mirroring once they launch their lands. And like DeFi Kingdoms, they're going to have heroes, but what I've noticed that's somewhat different from DeFi Kingdoms is that as these heroes level up or progress, they look different. And this is going to sound nuts, but I know gamers, in fact, I've done this myself, just to get your character all the way to the highest level, you're going to see gamers putting in a crazy amount of time. And what's wild is that outside of GameFi, if we were to do this, we wouldn't get compensated for it. We would basically do it for enjoyment. But in the setting of GameFi, we actually get to make some money off of this because as the heroes level up, they're going to be worth more and more. In fact, I decided to change my strategy up a bit with DeFi Kingdoms, and that was largely because of the realization I came to. Heroes, or these NFTs, are basically like real estate. Because with real estate, if you put time in, you renovate, the value of your house goes up, plus it's a productive asset because you're able to rent it out and earn a yield on it. With these heroes, it's the same deal. As you're leveling them up, they're becoming more and more valuable, and by sending them on quest or renting them out, you're able to earn income off of them. And once they implement a scholarship system, I'm confident that a lot of these NFTs, these heroes, are going to turn into productive assets where you can basically rent them out to other players or users and generate a yield on them. Now that I've given you guys a history and I've gone over the introduction, let's shift the conversation over to the tokenomics. Like I was saying earlier, it's a dual token system. You have FIRA and you have Tranq, which acts as the governance token for Tranquil Finance, their multi-primitive DeFi protocol on Harmony. FIRA is going to be the world's main currency of exchange. Merchants across DeFira use FIRA to trade valuable resources and heroes between each other. Legends say that the orb is even capable of governing the laws of the world itself. The Tranq token is going to be reimagined into a mystical orb of great magical power in the world of DeFira. These orbs are used as a catalyst in magical rituals like wishing for new heroes and other activities that consume great mystical energy. So basically what you have is DeFi governance tokens, Tranq and Mimas on their respective chains, and you have FIRA that's going to be used as a medium exchange in all transactions across the various chains that they expand to. It's going to be an interesting model given that DeFi Kingdoms is doing something different, and their GameFi experience, every kingdom is going to have their own currency, and so that's going to lead to a lot of interesting arbitrage opportunities. And every kingdom or every chain they expand into, the only way you're going to be able to get that token, initially at least, during the seeding phase, is by staking your jewel token. So compared to their model, this is very nuanced. In terms of the token distribution, you have half for incentives, which is very healthy. Typically in the industry, you see an average of 30 to 50%. And the remaining 50%, well, 22% is going to the team, 15 to the treasury, 5 for marketing, and 8 for research and development. This amount here presumably is for the team so they can cash out, but anytime teams say that they're allocating to the treasury, marketing, and research and development, I think it's somewhat meaningless because technically speaking, they can go ahead and spend it on anything that they want. Really don't have a good means of keeping them accountable in terms of all of this spending. So we just have to assume that they're acting in good faith. And that 22%, it's going to be linearly vested for 2 years, and the vesting is subject to milestone-based cliff after the launch of their NFT hero system. And if we take a look at the roadmap, it looks like that's one of their near to midterm goals. And if you take a look at the token price, it's gone up parabolically since launch. So because a lot of these degens are aping into this pool, and given that most of the yield is locked in FIRA, which you can't sell on the open market, and they did that because with Jewel, a lot of people were selling their locked Jewel via escrow. And so what that did was basically demolish the demand for the unlocked Jewel token. And to make certain that didn't happen to their game, they decided that the locked token, you're not going to be able to send it, sell it, or escrow it. So because most of the tokens are locked and people can't sell them on the open market, and because to purchase the heroes you're going to need unlocked FIRA token, I suspect that people are just claiming their yield and staking it in the bank. Now at some point I do believe the price is going to come down significantly. My guess is it's going to come from the team when they decide to raise some more money. They're basically going to dump some of their FIRA tokens to raise cash. Or if people who provided liquidity and bought the FIRA token, if they're unsuccessful in securing a Gen 0 hero, or they're unhappy with the game, those could also be catalysts for the price coming down significantly. but there still is a relatively safe way to get exposure to the token, and I'll talk about that in the subsequent section of this video. The hard cap for the tokens is 1 billion, and they've pre-minted 100 million, which represents the distribution that I just showed you guys. They're also taking the V token model and iterating on it. For example, with Curve and potentially now with Anchor Protocol, you're able to lock up your governance tokens that you're earning as a yield. And if you lock them up for an extended period of time, you're eligible for a bonus yield. So potentially you could take your FIRA, lock it up for a fixed period of time, get boosted yields on pool, get additional utility, and it could further be integrated by giving users bonus attributes or bonus skills for the NFTs that they have, or just giving them free valuable in-game NFTs. Now, the emissions for the pools are scheduled to last for 4 years, and this is going to be disseminated in a combination of FIRA, SFIRA, and Trank. And again, SFIRA is a time-locked version of FIRA that's redeemable in 12 months. And if you want to initiate that process, just come here to the Enchantress and go ahead and stake your SFIRA here. Now, pivoting to Trank and Mimas, these tokens are going to have dual value and utility as both DeFi and GameFi tokens, whose design aims to address the inflation and negative price action commonly observed in other DeFi protocols and play-to-earn games. Chain tokens are going to be game resources that are consumed for game features, such as the cost for performing a hero wishing ritual. As the game is developed, in-game utility for these tokens will increase. Tokens will be permanently burned after being used, providing deflationary pressure. And I'm really looking forward to seeing some of this play out, whether it's with DeFi Kingdoms or it's with DeFira. I think there's a good chance that as these GameFi dexes move into other chains, they're going to end up stealing the TVL of some of the chain's dominant dexes and money market protocols, because they're going to be able to offer sustainable yield, which makes them attractive basically to everybody. And secondly, as they grow their community and user base, you'll have a large group of people that follow them from chain to chain. And that essentially becomes free marketing for the team. And what I've observed with DeFi Kingdoms is that not only do you have early investors that have become YouTubers, you also have people part of the community that have developer skills that are building third-party applications. So it's almost like the community is part of the team. So for those reasons, I'm very curious to see what happens as these GameFi projects expand onto other chains. Ultimately, it's going to come down to the tokenomics and how engaging the game is. If the team is able to deliver on those two fronts, existing DeFi primitives on other chains are going to have a tough time competing with these GameFi projects. Now, depending on your risk tolerance, you can do a few things to get exposure. If you're super bullish on the game and you're not concerned about the price dropping, the easiest thing to do would be to go ahead and buy FIRA token. And after you buy a FIRA token, come here into the game, click on guard and stake it. But the yield that you're going to be paid in is in SFIRA. And if you compare the yield to some of the pools here, it's pretty competitive. And that would be a great strategy for you guys that are super bullish, that are concerned about impermanent loss if you enter one of these pools here. Just buying FIRA and staking it would earn you a fat yield, plus you'll be ready for the Gen 0 sale. Another option that's a little bit less risky is providing yield into one of these pools here. And if you take a look at Trank, the price has gone up with FIRA, and that's largely because you have to provide liquidity into this pool using Trank and FIRA. And largely due to the fact that FIRA and Trank were pumping, the TVL has ballooned to over 9 million, becoming the largest pool on DeFira. Now, the concern that you should have with this pool is that both the tokens have gone up significantly. If the broader market corrects, these two tokens aren't going to be immune from it. But on the flip side, if you're medium to long-term bullish, then none of that should concern you. At some point, these yields are going to come down. So your best bet is to provide liquidity early on to take advantage of these robust yields. And make sure you guys are redeeming these rewards on a regular basis and depositing your locked SFIRA with the Enchantress and locking your FIRA with the Guard. This way you're maximizing your return potential while the yields are still very robust. And prior to the heroes going on sale, you'll have accumulated a significant amount of FIRA and SFIRA. Now, for those of you guys that are more risk adverse, they do have some USD based pairs here. Now, you can't avoid the volatility because on one side you'll be exposed to the one token, but at least with the USDC, you'll be hedged a little bit. And out of all the pools, that's the safest option you can go with. Now, the downside is that you're going to be accumulating FIRA, which you're not going to be able to sell, and presumably you're not going to be able to use it to purchase heroes. So in that regard, it's going to significantly reduce your purchasing power when it comes time to buy some Gen 0 heroes. Now, the other option is buying some Trank tokens. And you can see here the Trank price has been going parabolic ever since they launched the pools on DeFira. So if you're okay with getting exposure to the Trank token and you're okay with the volatility, you can go ahead and stake it here. And by doing that, you don't have to get exposure, you don't have to provide liquidity to a pool, because when you provide liquidity to a pool, remember that if you withdraw early, you're going to be hit with a pretty significant penalty fee. Now, the same applies here, but at least you don't have to get exposure to two different tokens. You can just get exposure to Trank. And as you stake Trank, you're going to be earning unlocked FIRA, and you're going to be earning other assets as well. And based on the current price of FIRA, you're earning a yield of 373% while you have your Trank stake. Well, that pretty much wraps up the video. I hope you guys enjoyed today's content. If you guys did, do me a huge favor, subscribe to the channel, give me a like, and definitely drop a comment down below. And even though most of my content is for free, I do have a subscription-based service through Patreon, where if you sign up for the lowest tier I have for just $20 a month, you'll get access to my private Discord channel. You'll get a free subscription to the paid version of my newsletter. Or if you're looking to expedite your learning with one-on-one dialogue, you can definitely sign up for one of these higher tiers. So if you think any of these services would benefit you, make sure to check out the description box below and click on my Patreon link. With that, this is CryptoOneStop signing out. I'll talk to you folks next time. Bye.